Good afternoon. I'm going to talk about my experience interviewing my teacher. I started out interviewing my cooperating teacher, but it quickly turned into a three-way interview between my cooperating teacher, who is a 30-year veteran of social studies teaching, the department head of the social studies department at my high school, who is also a 30-plus year veteran, and then a second-year math teacher. I started out by asking my cooperating teacher about planning and just kind of different approaches that he takes when he is planning. And his general sense of it was that he has been doing this for so long that planning doesn't really take too much time for him anymore, because he knows where he's going to be at a given time in a unit on what day. He knows what he's going to teach. He has all the little background stories that the textbook doesn't have for his students. So that just comes with time and experience. He's just accumulated so much of that stuff that he really just has to kind of adapt on a daily basis based on how far he got in the previous class. So this is about the time when the department head came in, and he started getting in on the conversation too. And his sense was the same. He'd been doing it for so long that if he thought of a new idea to use in his classroom, he would try to implement it as best he could and see how it goes. And it's just kind of a trial and error process over the years. He knows what works, he knows what doesn't, and that's just something that's going to come with time. But their general sense was the longer you teach, the easier planning becomes, just because you have that accumulated knowledge of the content, of how classes tend to go, of how timelines tend to play out, and that sort of thing. And so I moved the conversation along to talk about what kind of impact that standards have on their planning. And this was about the time when the second-year math teacher came in, and he had a kind of a much more real perspective in terms of what I should expect when I'm first starting out teaching, because he didn't have that accumulated experience that these two other guys had. So planning played a much bigger role for him. And in terms of standards, he felt like it helped him out a lot, because it gave him a structure of what he needed to teach, what he needed to make sure he covered, and that kind of helped him plan out the order of his units and account for time and how long he should spend on a given topic. And it just helped him structure his course a little bit better. And my cooperating teacher went on a pretty long rant about how standards have their downfalls, sure, but for new teachers they can be very useful, because they help give that structure, especially for social studies, because this is the content you have to cover. You have this much time to do it. Plan accordingly. And so if you have this kind of skeleton that you can, this sort of structure you can follow, then you can modify it, you can add to it. Just make sure you cover at least this, and it just lays it out, and it helps first-year teachers decide what to include and what not to include. And I've written many papers and had many conversations about how I feel about state standards and national standards. Less than a fan, I guess, but I do see the argument how it can help a first-year teacher. And I will admit that when I was the little bit of planning I did do earlier, I certainly was looking at the SOLs as a guide, because I obviously do not want to leave anything out, and it did help me with structure. But I also did feel it limited me in a sense, because I had to dedicate time to teaching certain things when I would have liked to talk about other things. But still, they certainly can be useful for helping a first-year teacher plan and a second-year teacher plan, and just to kind of get a feel for it and to get the process down. Because I'm sure that after time, once I've been doing this for a while, I can quickly cover some of those things that I don't really want to spend a whole lot of time on, and dedicate more time to doing things that I would like to do that cover the bigger concepts. But that certainly will come with time. The next thing that we talked about was I asked him about the stresses of teaching, the strains of teaching, and it was funny listening to all these guys talk about it because immediately they started saying, be ready to do this extracurricular activity, be ready to sponsor this club, be ready to coach this sport. You know, if they're going to ask you what sport can you coach, and if you don't have an answer for them, well, prepared to do something you don't want to do. So what they were getting at was the amount of time that's required outside of the classroom to do all these extra things that are expected of teachers. So sponsoring a club, coaching a sport, staying late to lesson plan, staying late to call parents to grade papers, to prepare final grades, this sort of thing. It's a lot of work that goes into being able to effectively manage your class and meet the expectations set on teachers by administration, by the community. So it's a lot more than just standing in front of a group of kids and talking. And I mean, anybody that thinks that that's what teaching is, well, anyways. One other thing that I got out of this conversation with him, when they were all talking, it was about an hour and a half after school one day, and they just kept going on and on about like all these different aspects of teaching, and it was fascinating for me to be there and listen to them talk because they conveyed this sense that they really longed for more time to be able to talk with other teachers. They felt that they didn't really get a whole lot of time in their day to be able to do that. Sure, like 30 minutes at lunch, you know, a couple minutes before class here and there, but essentially that's it on a given day. So they really enjoyed the time that they were able to spend right then and there being able to talk about what teaching is. There are different philosophies on classroom management and grades and standards and all this stuff. They really didn't have too much time to dedicate to that otherwise. And it just got me thinking about how much I can't wait to get back with the cohort and hear the stories that everybody has about everything and share my own and see how everybody did and what their feelings are about everything. Just to have that interaction about, you know, this profession that we all love and are eager to get into. And I just thought that was an interesting point I got out of it, is that you spend so much time doing this other stuff, planning lessons, calling parents, sponsoring extracurricular activities, just all this different stuff that you really don't seem to have too much time to reflect on, or at least reflect with other teachers about what you're doing and what they're doing and how to grow and just mixing ideas and stuff like that. So that's, you know, that just goes to show you how valuable blogging and reflecting in it in that way can be if you can find time to do it once we're actually teaching. So it's good we're getting some practice with it right now. And yeah, well, I mean, I guess that was the major summation of the interview. So I guess lessons to take home. Number one, time management and planning, absolutely crucial. If you have a few minutes within the school day, spend it planning. Be well prepared, because time is very, very valuable, especially in your first year of teaching. So make the most of it, plan, and be prepared. Okay, well, thank you for listening, and I will return later.